looking at the pros and cons of bees, for example, I always like to think about how in agriculture, in sustainable agriculture, we complain about monocultures, and bees are a really good example, honeybees, of how we depend on monoculture too much. And so that's why you want to diversify with wild bees. And so Hampshire, somebody already mentioned the Kern Center, so that's one of the things. I'm just one of many people who deal with this kind of stuff, and not the Kern Center as much as some others. We have 3 faculty members who teach classes on it and a number of staff. But I'm interested in some of the other issues too, as well as that. Hampshire has about 800 acres, and then a lot of it's, half of it's an organic farm, and there's a lot of forest. And so we actually do have a lot of resources for pollinators and other wildlife. And for me, it's not just pollinators, it's other wildlife. I work on insects and crops, but also birds and other issues. So, so the forest and the farm are a nice resource for nectar, pollen, but also nesting sites and other non-food resources like fungi and medicinal plants for bees and resins for propolis. But we also do have a lot of lawn too. The old joke at Hampshire is, why is the driveway so long? It reminds the students of home. So actually, I'll come back to that. But recently, this is an old campus illustration because the Kern Center, this went in here, and also this whole area in the middle was torn out to put in meadows and stuff. So that's part of what we were trying to do. I think a theme for us is less lawn and less chemistry and more biodiversity, just for campus-wide in general, including the lawns, and not just depending on the forest. So let's see. So this is the Kern Center, and actually this area around in front of it has been planted in flowers, and actually some trees. And the meadow, what used to be a ring road, has been planted in flowers. And I won't try to read all this, and I don't know all of these details, some other people do, but it's some examples of, and I highlighted some of the themes of these plantings, which is it's native plants that are easy to maintain, and it also supports a lot of wildlife, not just bees. We actually in the farm do less mowing of the hay fields, and the less some fields go for grassland birds. There's 27 species of wildflowers there and some grass seeds, and it also includes not just pollinator plants, but some shrubs that produce winter fruits. So that's kind of the theme of these plantings right around the Kern Center, and also just what used to be a road area, and the grassland is now more grass, is just now flowers. And these are a great source of student projects and faculty projects too. I'm always taking my classes out. I do 2 agriculture classes a year, and we're always going out and looking at things when it's nice weather. We also have started a bunch of 2 big solar arrays, and there's one faculty member and her students who are studying a lot of the flowers planted in the fenced-in areas, and we study it as a conservation area and a wildlife refuge. This is a fox nesting on the edge. In addition to the farm, the farm is nice, but not every campus can have one of those. In a way, some ways, what's more important is we have a couple community gardens, a student community garden and an edible forest garden that was started by a student in 2009. And I also say we recognize having a lot of trees around. I think the long-term trend, again, is to sort of eat away at the lawn and put more stuff in, more interesting instead. And I always like to note how the floral density in trees, trees, little trees and shrubs, you get a lot of bang for the buck. And not just nectar and pollen, but again, resins and other things that bees are interested in. We just recognize the value of doing just nothing or less, and this is actually kind of we have disagreements about this, to be perfectly honest, when to clear and when to mow, when to spray even sometimes. We do avoid herbicides and neonicotinoids, but it's other things besides, I knew there would be a lot of pictures of pollinators, so I like to look at predators too, and so I like to point out, one of the things we do is just try to not do so much, don't control the dandelions anymore. Don't mow all the goldenrods on the edge, and we do have people who want to do that. Decades ago, we had arguments about they were spraying 2,4-D to kill the dandelion, so it would look nice for graduation. Because we're trying to grow donors, not just animals, right? But so that was attention, but they stopped doing that, which is good. And and it makes me think dandelions are kind of originally an invasive. How long do you have to be an invasive before you get to be considered? It's like it's like moving into New England, and how many decades do you have to live here before you're not a foreigner anymore? So dandelions. One of the things I like to do is take my spring classes out, and this is Coleomegala, which is a ladybug that actually UMass recommends. There's one reason to rotate corn with potatoes, because it likes corn pollen and Colorado potato beet legs. And we also find they really like roadside dandelions in agricultural areas, so it's kind of a gap crop between the crops. And then goldenrod in the fall, I like to take my fall classes out there. And one thing I've noticed, just subjectively, is there's a lot of wasps. So they're a source. We're a college, so we really use this for classes and stuff too, in addition to its own intrinsic value. And just a thought too. Another larger issue I just wanted to bring up is it's not just pollinators, but there's this thing recently. There was a New York Times article, and there's been some research articles. Insects of all kinds are really being drastically reduced now, and they call it the windshield effect. Because you don't notice as many insects on your windshield anymore as you used to. I kind of notice this too. I like to take students out and sweep, and I call it biodiversity in a bag. We look at a plastic bag full of insects. You just don't see as many as you used to. And it ripples up into some herb populations and bird populations too. And I just also like to bring in from agriculture this idea of nature's matrix. That, we think of lawns as a potential source for resources for wildlife, and also you have corridors around them. But the lawns, like farms themselves, are actually corridors, and they're part of what connects these metapopulations of wild areas. And so these people wrote about this as an antidote to the idea that you want little intensively sprayed chemical farms so that you have more land for wildlife in the wild areas, as if they're separate things. But they're not separate things, they're all together, and it's much easier for wildlife to cross an organic, shaggy farm as opposed to a little chemical monocultural war zone. And that's also true for lawns. I mean, if you're going to have something between your forests, it's better be organic, shaggy, and not a chemical war zone.